He's just ripping some cotton in between shots.
The world is getting crazier. People are acting more and more insane. The end of the world is tomorrow. Tomorrow. There's only one thing to do when the world is falling apart. Listen to Basil and Gonz as they discuss this week's news and events through the lens of Bible prophecy.
You are listening to Canary Cry News Talk.
You're listening to Canary Cry News Talk. Today is March 22nd, 2021. This is episode 314. And today, Embryo of the Beast. That's right. And, I don't know. I'm not an embryo, but I am your best buddy, Basil.
And I am your resident AMP. That is Asian American Millennial Podcaster.
Ooh.
And welcome to the podcast. My name is Gonz, where we praise Jesus while reporting the egregious with a well-rounded, biblically grounded take on world events. Basil, I need you to refresh your video. You are transparent.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yeah, I need
refreshing video. We're still working out some of the tweaks with the new tech setup, but that's okay. The show must go on.
There he is.
Well, happy Monday, Gonz. We made it through another weekend.
We did. It was very eventful.
You do anything exciting?
I did, actually. Today is actually, it's a lot of things, but among the more nefarious things today is my daughter Kaya's birthday. She turns 4.
Oh, cute.
4 years since she was
4?
born. Isn't that crazy? Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Goes by quick. So we did a little family get together yesterday, and she got to open presents, and it was a good time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Good times.
Yeah.
Good times. No cat birthdays over on this side. In fact, it was kind of refreshing to have an uneventful weekend. I think a lot of people can agree with that.
I actually also had to go to a kimono dresser. The wife is doing some family photos, and I will be in my traditional garb.
Ooh, I like this.
Yeah, we did it before we got married in 2008. So this will be the first time doing it since then. I didn't appreciate...
So you're wearing like traditional palatial regalia in a kimono?
Yeah. It's like a whole deal.
Does your wife wear one?
Yes. Everybody in the family.
Do you have a sword?
You know, I'm going to ask for one just to make the pictures worth it.
I feel like you should have a sword. It just seems like, if you're going to get the kimono, I got to say, as someone who I think appreciates Japanese culture as much as any white kid who liked anime could appreciate Japanese culture, I didn't know you needed to get a kimono fitted. I thought it was kind of one of those one-size-fits-all situations.
Oh, no. You have to be fitted, especially, the Japanese people are not very large people. They're very petite people. So I had to, it was funny because the gal who's doing my thing, she brought out, 3 or 4 different sizes. And she looks at the size 31 and she looks at me and she goes, no. And then 32, she goes, no. Of course, size 33.
33 is your kimono size?
And she's, yes, this is it. And she said I'm the size of a bear, which I don't know what that means. I don't know.
I mean, it's kind of like a manly compliment, I think.
I guess. It's not a compliment in Japan, I'll tell you that. My mother tells me how fat I am every time I see her. And
size 33 kimono. That is a core piece of Canary Cry canon. Everybody needs to commit to memory right now.
The other part of it is she said, "Are you gonna shave your beard?" And I said, "I'll trim it." And she goes, "Trim? Oh no, shave." Like,
this is the kimono lady?
Yeah.
Oh, she doesn't like it.
No, because it covers I guess the fold over at the chest is an important piece of showing the under layers of the kimono or something. I don't know.
You mess up the whole ritual.
Yeah, I don't know.
Your beard.
But apparently within a month or so, I will be clean shaven for a couple days. I made a deal. I said, I will shave. but then I will not touch my facial hair for 8 months. The rest of 2021.
Master negotiator.
Yeah.
That's so look, I don't need to spend too much time on this, but so this kimono place, is it strictly a kimono place? Like, is it a fancy specific place, or is it like Gentleman's Warehouse?
No, it's a
kimono section.
It's a specific store. It's out in Pasadena, California, and it's a lady from Japan, and it's like a whole little shop. It's small, but you can rent.
And that's like what they do. That's all they do.
Basically, yeah.
Or it's similar traditional Japanese things.
Yeah. Some traditional stuff. I think they just merged with the hairdresser. So, one side of the shop is hairdressing and the other side is more kimono dressing. So, it's a cool little deal.
Now, not to make anything too intense at the top of the show, though, but was there any talk about the danger that Asian Americans are in? Was there like a vibe being in such a Asian centric business?
No.
Okay.
No.
Well,
except me going, have you felt all the discrimination? But other than that, no.
We gotta stick together.
We have to stick together. Where's my katana?
Wow. Well, that's fun. That sounds like a fun thing. Okay. Real quick before we get too far, I just want to remind everybody, if you haven't done it yet, please hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to the channel and turn on notifications.
Yo, hold on. Where that
like, subscribe, bell button, all. Like, subscribe, bell button, all.
That was weird. I had my mouse. My mouse moved on me.
Oh, I know the feeling.
Yeah, it's a magical mouse.
Yeah, make sure to do that. We want to get as many likes and subscribes going at the front part of the show. You got to front load it, and that convinces the algorithms to share the show. So thank you very much.
And just
I don't know if I'm going to make the French algorithms a permanent thing, but I'm having fun with it.
Yeah, I think it's going to be permanent
until they bring back Pepe Le Pew.
Until there's a jingle, which there might be. I think it's going to be a thing. Also, if you are an owner of the Canary Cry calendar for the calendar year of 2021, you would know that today is UN World Water Day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Raise awareness.
Is that the most important thing on March 22nd?
No, not really, but it's today for those of you who care.
What does this mean? Just celebrating water?
Well, just clean water for all, and make sure people get water. And everybody watch Waterworld tonight. Kevin Costner with his gills.
Stay hydrated. Watch Waterworld. Did I tell you I watched Waterworld like only a couple weeks ago?
No,
still
but
holds
your
up.
green screen. You're doing the green screen thing again, so I need you to fix your video again. This might be an ongoing issue.
I am doing it. Yeah, I didn't do anything.
I know. I know you're not doing it. It's my end, but I can't do anything about it. You have to refresh.
Okay.
The other thing is today marks 40 years since the opening of the Georgia Guidestones.
Oh, it's an actual, that's a big anniversary, 40 years.
Yeah, and I don't think it's a coincidence that they announced the opening of the Georgia Guidestones on March 22nd. The 322 Skull and Bones.
Yeah.
And March 22nd, 1980 was the opening date. So it was 40 years. And of course, population control, eugenics, internationalism, the object of controversy and conspiracy theories.
Yes. I wonder if they're doing like a little celebration there. The Georgia Guidestones are obviously reminiscent of like Stonehenge and any number of those sort of megalithic or monolithic. I don't know which one it is.
Megalith.
Ancient structures. Maybe there's like a little pagan festival going on there.
If it happened this morning, probably, as the sun rose and aligned with the stones and the dirt or something. Yeah.
I'm going to just do a quick little search.
Yeah.
Georgia Guidestones celebration.
Yeah. Well, that and the Dark Clouds Over Elberton documentary with Chris Pinto and Dr. Future, they uncover who's behind the Guidestones, and I don't think they get enough credit for uncovering that. He's a Rosicrucian man, and I mean, you can watch the documentary. They basically give it away. It's a R.C. Christian, who that guy actually was. But online, all you see is the mystery continues. Nobody knows who built it, and it's like, I feel like we uncovered it, but
we definitely know who built it.
Yeah,
it wasn't that. It's only 40 years old. the bulldozer tracks were still there.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, yeah. Another example of, Canary Cry News Talk show days falling on important days in 2021.
Absolutely.
It continues.
Yep. And before we move on, just going with the theme here, I know you've been doing all your Marvel watching. I hear you're a Marvel fan, a little fanboy.
Oh, you've heard.
You're going to get
my reputation precedes me.
You're going to get like Marvel tattooed across your chest is what I hear.
No. In our line of work, Gons, you need to know a little bit about a lot of things. And yes, I've recently watched, I don't know, all Marvel.
Right. Well, I was, it was funny because I'm kind of, there were people messaging us saying like, hey, Basil, you should watch the new thing, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. Episode 1. What is the title of the episode?
A New World Order.
A New World Order. The name of the episode. Episode 1.
They did not pull any punches on this one. It was chock-a-block full of fun little references that Canary Cry listeners and adjacent community members will be very familiar with.
And I have a couple audio clips from the dialogue. Here's the first one.
You see these guys? These are the guys you got to worry about. I've been stumbling onto their manifestos on message boards. They call themselves the Flag Smashers.
Was that a new thing? Bad guys give themselves bad names?
There's a lot worse names than that one. Basically, they think that the world was better during the blip.
Trust me, every time something gets better for one group, it gets worse for another.
Yeah, essentially, these people, they want a world that's unified without borders. So you can see why a lot of people are into that.
There you go. A world without borders. And
a little switcheroo, though. This is, what did they call them? The Black Smashers?
The Flag Smashers.
Flag Smashers, right. So they make the Flag Smashers, the no borders, no rules, no borders folks. They kind of frame them as the Q types.
Right.
The online message board. So they do a little switcheroonski there. What other clips you got?
I do got to ask you though, because like online, there's just been a lot of stuff about Steve. Actually, crazy conspiracy theories. Some people, they think that he's in the secret base on the moon, looking down over us.
Well, I can assure you, those people you don't have to take serious.
But you didn't fly him to the moon?
Nah.
Yeah, so he denies that Steve is on the moon looking down on us.
Bases. Captain America is not on the moon base.
You know, that makes me think that that's going to be part of the plot. That'll be kind of the twist.
Yeah, that made me think, he's definitely on the moon base.
And he's counting Bitcoin on the moon is what he's doing.
Yeah. You know, there's a lot of really interesting things in this. Well, first of all, I'll just give sort of a surface level review.
Okay.
I'm going to continue to watch Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But the first episode you kind of got to work for it. You know, there's like a lot of like the Winter Soldier. He's going to like a really bad therapist, and you basically spend 15 minutes in a therapy session, which was just kind of excruciating. And then Falcon is like fighting with his sister half the episode with like no point, just no avail, just sibling anger, which had almost no point to it. I don't know. They're just laying down the emotional foundation for the show. But because now for those who are not Marvel people, the last Marvel movie, or set of movies, Infinity War and Endgame, there's a big apocalyptic event. They call it the Snap, where half of the universe's population, but half of the world's population vanished. And it had a very, growing up Christian, especially in the circles that I did, it was very reminiscent of like
the Rapture.
The Rapture. Yes. It was basically the Left Behind movies suddenly happened in Marvel, which is just an interesting sort of allusion to draw. But then later, 5 years later, they undo the snap and everybody comes back. But so half the world's population was missing for 5 years. And in this episode, Falcon, who I believe was one of the ones who has disappeared, is trying to get a loan at a bank. And they're laying very heavily on the, he's a black man trying to get a loan from a bank. And they're always trying to keep the black man down. But the banker was like, you have no income history for the past 5 years, so we can't give you a loan. He's like, yeah, I got snapped. I was gone. I didn't exist. It's like, oh, sorry, we can't get you the loan. But it kind of had a vibe of lockdown, coronavirus lockdowns, because you've got a huge population of the United States and the world who were basically forcibly put out of work. Mm-hmm. And, many people had no income for an entire year. And I could kind of see this being a little reminiscent of some issues people might be having, trying to get loans or trying to, figure out their banking. If you show no income for a year, it's pretty hard to participate in the traditional banking system. So there's a couple little nods like that throughout the whole thing. But yeah, otherwise, I'll keep watching it. We'll see what happens.
State-sponsored propaganda machinery.
That's what it is.
That's right. All right. Well, I think we should start the show. What do you think?
Sleepy update.
Do you want fries with that?
Okay. So for those who are new to the show, let me let you in on a little secret. Flippy is the colloquial name for the disembodied robot arms that are taking our jobs, enslaving our children, and flirting with our spouses. We use talking about Flippy to explore all the new and exciting ways that robots and AI are taking over the world, and there's nothing we can do about it. Today, I'm taking an article from Futurism.com, and the headline is "The maker of M&Ms built a robot to chase you around the store with candy." Dun, dun, dun. Anytime there's a story about robots chasing people, we got to keep up with it. The article reads like this: as if avoiding impulse purchases at the grocery store wasn't hard enough, the company behind M&Ms has created an autonomous robot that follows you around as you shop for groceries to tempt you with candy. The Mars Inc. candy company developed the robot nicknamed Smiley. If there was any more ominous of a name for a robot that would stalk you, Smiley, that's the tip of the pyramid right there. To follow shoppers around and offer them snacks long before they reach the checkout line, according to Gizmodo. The robot uses a variety of sensors to get around the store and approach potential customers with candy. Then there's a video there. Gathering data for the robot uprising. Futurism understands me. Smiley wasn't just made to sell candy, though. The robot is also gathering valuable data about customer interactions. It uses its sensors to watch how shoppers go about the store and interact with specific products, reports Gizmodo. This data can help store owners create a better shopping experience. Don't worry, folks. This is to better your shopping experience for their customers in the future and sell more products as a result. So far, Mars has only released one Smiley for testing at a ShopRite grocery store in Monroe, New York. If both ShopRite and Mars find it successful, though, we might see an entire army of Smileys being unleashed on stores throughout the world. Who knew our cyberpunk dystopia would be less cybernetic augmentations and flying cars and more creepy robots that stalk you while you try to buy groceries? So there you go. Pretty self-explanatory. No longer is the impulse buying zone limited to being in line at the cash register. But now that's going to be following you around. And this is funny because they obviously just wanted to spy on customers, but they used the candy to sort of lure customers in and make it less spooky. You know, obviously the ultimate goal of this thing is not just to sell more candy bars, but to monetize data of shopping habits and people walking around the store. But, you know, I just thought it was another angle to the robot uprising that not only are they here to spy on our every move, but, you know, remember what your mama said. Don't let a strange robot offer you candy and follow you around.
That was what I was going to say. There's the saying, don't take candy from strangers. Yeah. And there's actually a whole backstory to that. It comes from a story from 1874 where...
1874?
Yeah, where little Charles...
That was much earlier than I would have expected.
Yeah, little Charles Brewster Ross and his older brother Walter Lewis Ross were hanging out, and a couple people came on a carriage and offered the boys candy and fireworks if they rode in the carriage. And
fireworks. Yeah. That's another story.
Yeah, and of course they were kidnapped, and there was a ransom and the whole deal. But yeah, that's where it comes from. And of course, you know, the more recent sort of not the connotation, but the iteration of the don't take candy from strangers is more to do with the either the pedophile or the rapist type of situation, especially with kids, more of the pedo thing, sure. Which makes me uncomfortable that they name this thing Smiley. You know, it's like extra weird.
Very ominous.
Yeah. You know, above everything else, chasing you around the store, taking data, offering candy. At least he's selling the candy, not giving it to you for any kind of exchange. Although, you know, that would be a way to get more data. Like, hey, I'll give you extra candy if you give me your fingerprint or something, you know?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Make it a bio data thing. Yeah. And people would do it. They would love to, you know, thankfully, especially Canary Cry folk and others around the world are realizing that, yeah, nothing's free. You're paying with your data in one sense or another. But yeah, I mean, the other thing is if you consider being around the cash register as like the impulse buy zone, economically, this makes the entire store an impulse buy zone. And in a time when we're all, you know, fighting for self-control, this is another example of robots, you know, increasing the ability to lose control and just eat candy wherever you stand in the shopping place, which seems harmless and doesn't seem like a big deal. But in the bigger trend of robotics and AI, you know, increasing comfort levels to the detriment of our mental and physical health, you know, when you fit it into that trend, it is a little bit more disturbing. Yeah.
Sorry about that. I think the garage door is making, I don't have a noise gate on this mic anymore. So all kinds of background noises are audible.
Content.
But yeah, just, you know, look out for these things. Offering you candy.
And if there's any producers out there, if you see one in the wild, if you live in Monroe, New York, go ahead, let us know. Snap a pic, a flippy picky. Yeah, keep us posted.
I'm just waiting for it to
stick some googly eyes on it.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it to bump into somebody, and
so they can sue.
Yeah, yeah, sue Smiley. All right. Okay, moving on here. We have a quick update about QAnon.
Q the miserable, Q the desperate. What must I do to convince you people? You're right, Q.
There's a new documentary on HBO all about Q. Here's the preview here.
Yeah.
What had started in an online forum had crawled out from behind the screen. In 2018, I set out to chart QAnon's origins.
You can really find yourself falling down a hole trying to find out who Q is.
Dangerous ideas. That's a scary idea.
It seems like Q's gone mainstream.
What did we conspire against?
The lunatics running the asylum.
Q into the storm.
Lunatics running the asylum. Oh, man. Yeah, super intense. I'm actually very curious. It is kind of, I don't know, a little bit of resistance just because I'm just kind of annoyed by Q at this point. And, you know, I kind of already know what a liberal media is going to say about it. But I could see how it'd be interesting to somebody who hasn't been flooded with Q info for 3 years.
Yeah, and the way they have some of the people anonymized in this is really interesting. There's a footage of this guy who's sitting across from the producer and probably giving his testimony or something, and they have him kind of like transparent and scribbled out. I don't know. It's just weird. Yeah, I don't know. The fact that they
Have you watched it? Are you going to watch it?
I don't have HBO, and I don't really care about the documentary. I'll have somebody else watch it and tell me what it's about.
Okay.
I'm not going to waste my time.
It's interesting, the mainstreamification and the commoditization of Q in mainstream media. You know, Q as a phenomenon has now been commodified in entertainment, such as with the South Park special, which I haven't seen. But, you know, it's all about Q, and now you got a Q documentary, and you got to, you know, get your HBO subscription so you can learn about Q, because you definitely don't want to just search it on the internet, because that's where the crazies are in charge of the asylum. You must get your HBO approved Q info.
Yeah. Where'd you hear about that? Oh, the HBO doc.
HBO.
Yeah, solid really talking bizarre. Point around the cooler.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just thought that was interesting that they, like you said, they're commercially, it's become a topic to make money off of, not just from the advocates, but from its opponents. You know, it's almost like,
I would say especially from the opponents.
Yeah. Lots of headlines. It's to keep the Trump hate train going post Trump. So there's a lot there, but yeah, I don't know. We'll just keep our eye on it.
Real quick. Yeah. No, I'll save it after this next story.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's do a quick Days of Noah story here, and then we'll get into some 33.
So shall also the coming of the Son of Man be.
Sorry, I stepped on you.
That's okay. This story was flying around, man, and it was a big update.
Well, yes, but also I found it interesting that this is the main part of this story is actually something we reported on the last episode towards the end in the Beast System section, talking about I thought it was the Beast. Yeah, mouse grown in a jar. That was kind of the breakthrough story part of this, but this article from, what is this, Haaretz.com goes a little bit deeper. And so I wanted to bring it to you.
Do you have a paywall on this thing?
I do, but I got around it. Archive.today. You want me to give you the link?
Yes, please do. Okay. I was just hacking into the mainframe real quick, but if you have a quicker one.
So the headline here is, "This is not science fiction. Israeli researchers have grown an embryo outside the womb." And it's kind of a long article, so I'm not going to read the whole thing because I think according to this audio thing here, it'll take 23 minutes just to read through it. But
I don't think you put the right link in there.
I didn't?
No. Oh, there's several links. Okay, yeah. I see here. Yeah, well, that's interesting. Yeah, especially comparing it. Well, you're going to have to take it. Nope. No, you're not. Okay.
Well, I have stuff highlighted too, so.
All right. Well, I'll get us started.
Okay.
This is not science fiction. Israeli researchers have grown an embryo outside the womb. It reads like this. An embryo floats in a bath of warm liquid, transparent, folded into itself, like all embryos. There's a large head with a round eye in it, the red heart, and the spinal cord that extends vertebrae by vertebrae to the curled up tail. Anyone might think it's a regular embryo, human or mouse. At this stage of development, both species sport a tail. But again, reference to the mouse grown in a jar. But no, this embryo is not developing within a mother's womb, but between the glass sides of a revolving vial. At a temperature of 37 degrees Celsius, set by a faithful thermostat. It's the first time in the world that scientists have succeeded in growing an embryo of a mammal, a mouse in this case, for a period of this duration. The venue is the laboratory of Professor Jacob Hanna and the Molecular Genetics Department of the Weizmann Institute of Science. Okay, what do you got highlighted?
Okay, so again, we covered that part of the story and how they're able to do it and keep it alive much longer than before, and the glass thing and the temperatures and the rotating thing. And let me scroll down here. There's a lot in there. Okay, so there's a lot of, they bring up a whole bunch of issues and they talk about the ethical problems with this and everything else. And it says, in the meantime, while the disputes over moral validity of using embryos for research or for transplants continue to roil, a new alternative route for creating embryos has emerged: synthetic embryos. The heart of the matter is this: the first embryonic cells bear the potential to differentiate into every type of cells. For this reason, they are known as stem cells, like the stem of a tree that divides into separate branches. Gradually, as the development continues, this omnipotence is reduced to a level at which a cell that takes the route of particular development loses its ability to develop in other directions. Finally, it becomes a mature cell with defined form and function, which means that a skin cell will never be able to reverse direction and become a muscle cell or a bone cell. At least that was the paradigm until 2006, when Professor Shinya Yamanaka announced that he had succeeded in restoring a mature cell to its former state. He took a mature cell which had already differentiated to become a specialized cell and restored it to the condition of an embryonic cell with the potential to develop anew into any cell in the body. 6 years later, Yamanaka, together with Sir John B. Gurdon, was awarded the Nobel Prize in Medicine for reversing time's arrow with an embryonic development. Quote, this process, which I like to compare to a computer restart, resetting what existed in order to start anew, is today a very established technology, which we also use. Hanna said, quote, it raises the possibility of taking mature cells, returning them to the stem cell stage, and using them to create embryos. These synthetic embryos, called such because they did not originate, as is standard in nature, from an egg and a sperm, but from a stem cell, are forging a new reality for which the old ethical rules are no longer valid.
Oh, that's interesting.
Nope.
The ethical rules are no longer valid.
Yeah.
That's quite a leap.
It's crazy. No longer a ban on growing the embryo for more mature than 2 weeks from the moment the egg is fertilized because there is no egg. Oh, so simple. We have circumvented it. Until now, we were successful in growing synthetic embryos for only a few days. Our research proposes that the possibility exists to grow such embryos for a far longer period until organ formation. That raises hopes regarding transplants, for which the organs will be taken from synthetic embryos.
That's so funny. Such like a scientist thing to do. Like, oh, the ethical concerns revolve around the egg. Well, I'll just get rid of the egg. There we go. No ethical concerns.
And then I think the interviewer asks the question, is that legalistic hair splitting to say that a difference exists in defining life between a natural embryo and an embryo termed synthetic?
Mm-hmm.
And he answers, of course, I don't think it's legalistic hair splitting. The synthetic embryo is not very much different from tissue that today is created from stem cells, a procedure about which there is no debate. Tissues like that create miniature organs called organoids, which we've talked about, which can be sustained in a test tube for a year, even 2 years. It was recently shown that an organoid of the human cerebral cortex creates brain waves similar to those we find in preemies, which caused a furor among those who see this as the creation of consciousness. People expressed concern that the organoid can experience suffering. Personally, I do not share that approach, but of course, practically, I am committed to the rules of ethics and to the accepted authorizations, which is a polite way of saying that, we're still keeping it legal.
Yeah. I'm not technically breaking any rules.
Right. It gets better here. The possibility of growing synthetic embryos from stem cells advances the possibility of organ transplants in humans, not only because it bypasses the ethical problem of using natural embryos, but also because it possesses an incalculable advantage biologically. The body of a transplant recipient has a tendency to reject the new organ because it is identified as a foreign body. But an organ that is created from the stem cells of the transplant recipient won't be rejected because it is not foreign to the body. So it's basically, take a little stem cell from your body and make a new kidney that is your kidney.
Yeah, right. You're not using separate DNA or separate synthetic stuff.
Right.
You're making it from your own cells.
Right. It goes on here. But why is it necessary to create a whole embryo from the stem cell? After all, it's possible to make do with the stem cells themselves and program them to develop in a test tube into whichever tissue we wish and then transplant the result. That is in fact what is being done now in a first experiment of its kind with sufferers from Parkinson's disease. Scientists reprogrammed the patient's skin cells to become stem cells and then programmed them to become neural cells that secrete dopamine. These were injected into the patient's brain, and now it remains to examine whether the new cells will replace the cells that were destroyed by the disease. This is what happened with monkeys. However, scientists do not always know how to program the stem cells to develop precisely in the desired direction, to become kidney cells, lung cells, or heart cells, for example. In fact, in general, they don't know what needs to be added to the test tube, which substances to provide to make the magic happen.
This girl must be practicing witchcraft.
Sounds a little bit like witchcraft.
Yeah. Wow.
And it goes on here. They ask about, hey, is this playing God? Are you trying to play God? Quote, we are indeed trying to move from mature cells to a stem cell and back to a different mature cell, backward and forward all along the way, or a few stations, to maneuver as we wish, but not in order to play God, but in order to understand the laws that organize the system. The ability to control the stages is the ultimate sign, the proof that we have understood the basic principles, and in addition, this flexibility makes it possible to do a number of exceptional and marvelous things that could change people's lives.
Marvelous.
What I'm hearing there is yada, yada, yada. Basically, yes, we're trying to play God without saying it or denying it even.
Yeah.
And then it continues on here, such as, quote, such as turning skin cells into an egg. We can already do that in mice. You can take skin cells, take it backward to become an embryonic stem cell, and then move it forward so it differentiates into an egg. In humans, we are able to reach only the station before the last, until the origin cell that is meant to develop into sex cells, but I hope that soon we will also decipher the transition to the final stage, the creation of the egg, which by its nature takes place in the ovary. That means that women will be exempt from the need to provide eggs. We will not need to collect eggs from women whom we previously flooded with hormones in order to stimulate their ovaries in cases where they have difficulty producing eggs spontaneously. Egg donation will become unnecessary, and there won't be pressure to freeze eggs. In all these cases, a simple skin cell will suffice, which can be turned into an egg in the laboratory. And they ask, what do you mean soon? Quote, I estimate within a few years unless we encounter an unexpected obstacle. And from there, the way will not be long to something that sounds even more fantastic, to produce eggs from the cell of a man.
Ooh.
I beg your pardon. Quote, effectively, this is a route that's very similar to the one I described earlier in creating an egg from a skin cell, but this time the skin cell will come from a male. Just like before, we will take the skin cell and return it to the condition of the stem cell. We will program it to be the origin cell that creates the sex cells as previously, but before that, we will remove the Y chromosome, the male sex chromosome, from it. That is possible thanks to the method we developed that causes the cell to throw out that chromosome. In the absence of a Y chromosome in the origin cell, it can be expected to create only eggs. And if so, we will have caused a cell from a man's body to become an egg. If that succeeds, it will mean the male couples will be able to have a child together of their own flesh and bone. One parent will provide the sperm cell, the other will donate the skin cell that will become the egg. Basil, that is
aliens.
That is aliens right there.
That's pretty next level.
It's crazy. But I actually talked about this years ago, must have been 2012, 2013, where, there's a lot of, one of the apologetics against gay marriage is that, hey, if everybody was gay, if everybody was a homosexual, then, we're pushing the extinction of mankind because nobody can procreate. Right. And I mentioned, that whole concept is going to be quote unquote debunked or overcome with technology. And here we are. I mean, they're literally talking. It took a few years for a scientist to admit it, but here we go. I mean, it's pretty much there. And there's one more thing to mention here that I think is worth highlighting. It's at the very end of this article here. And this is, again, talking about this Professor Hanna. At age 41, he says, quote, "I'm coming to recognize increasingly that I am, all in all, a hedonist who is supported by family and by philanthropists who donate to the laboratory where I practice my only hobby, research. Overall, I feel that I don't deserve this. Maybe it's a survivor guilt of someone who endured and thrived when many of his colleagues on all planes, national, professional, gender, didn't succeed because they didn't have the opportunity. Everything could have been so different." So at the very end here, he admits he's a hedonist. Which
yeah, that's interesting. He must be really working with the
Satan.
Academic definition of hedonist. Meaning research is like his only pleasure.
His only pleasure, yeah.
And that's what he focuses on.
So there you go. That's
very interesting.
The deeper end of this story here about the Israeli researcher who made this breakthrough of sustaining an embryo outside of a womb. And, on the surface, it's kind of like, whoa, yeah, major developments. But then you read through the interview and it's like, whoa, this guy's ideologies are pretty out there. And he's getting around all kinds of ethical questions.
Well, it's very interesting that they do that, because normally, or at least the old paradigm used to be, scientists are scientists and they do the science. They are not ethicists.
Right.
That's not their job to decide what to do with the information, the science that they come up with. They just do the research. But, this guy is like, no, I am the scientist. I am the ethicist. I am the hedonist. I am all. And it is interesting with the playing God comment because, in the past, if you accuse a scientist, or at least in the public domain, in a newspaper or something, you accuse them of playing God, they usually go, no, we're not playing God. We wouldn't do that. This guy's just like, yeah, what of it? Well, of course I'm playing God. That's the whole point.
He kind of denied. He's like, oh, it's not playing God. And then went on to proceed to how, explain how it kind of is like playing God. So,
yeah. Well, it is, it is interesting in hindsight, like with the scientific worldview, especially of those who are doing this kind of research, who, generally probably wouldn't admit to believing in a monotheistic God, at least, that they would even feel the need to deny that. But it's basically just PR.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. Wow. Well, that's some next level stuff, man.
Well, he's in Israel too, which is interesting, with a lot of my views and many of their people out there who, have looked at the scriptures and have suggested that perhaps the Antichrist and the false prophet, the entire beast system comes out of eschatological Jerusalem. And it's kind of consistent with that. They're making these breakthroughs. And if they're going to have some kind of messianic figure, why not be some kind of genetically pure or genetically engineered human that did not be born from a woman's womb?
Human.
Much like, not similar to the story of Jesus and, the virgin birth and all that. It's kind of like the modern version of it. And, it taps into the passages that we've talked about in the past, Daniel 12:4, about, many shall run to and fro. Knowledge shall be increased in the end of days. And also the other one that's interesting is from Daniel 2, You go to verses 41 through 43. This is the one that talks about mixing iron and clay. And, as you saw, the iron mixed with miry clay, so will the people mix with one another, but they will not hold together any more than iron mixes with clay. And, there's different interpretations of that. But if you apply it to the eschatology, it seems to suggest that there is some kind of mingling that is not kosher, if I can use that phrase, not God ordained. And therefore, it is very much like the days of Noah. So there you go.
Booyah. Wow.
Yep.
Very interesting. Okay. Well, you got some 33 updates for us?
I do. I just wish they would stop the garage. How many times do you have to open and close a garage?
Can you
hear
what?
the buzz?
How many motorcycles you got to pop wheelies on the way out?
Yeah, I know. It's called air therapy, by the way. People that ride motorcycles, that ride it around.
I had never heard that term.
Oh, yeah.
That's a good term. Yeah. Air therapy.
Air therapy.
I did watch Rogue One. I've sort of transferred my Marvel energy over to Star Wars the past few days. Watched Rogue One, and there was a clip, of course, Rogue One being where we got the "Congratulations, you are being rescued. Please do not resist" clip.
Yeah.
And there's another one. I didn't clip it yet, but I just was going to put it out there. The same robot, lovable guy, does some calculations and decides that they have 33% survival for their mission there. And of course they, not to give it away, but yeah, everybody dies in the end of Rogue One. So yeah, I don't know. Considering all the numbers that get thrown around for COVID and vaccines and things like that, especially 33%, we hear a lot. Just triggered. I got triggered.
You got triggered. Well, there's a side story here, real briefly. If you want to read it, you can. This is the XinhuaNet.com. Israeli researchers develop weather-resistant wheat through hybrid.
I had not read this. I don't know what it is. It sounds boring. What is it?
It's very short.
Impress me.
Basically, let me just read. It's a short story. Israeli researchers have created and improved modern wheat variety by adding it a gene segment of wild wheat, the Hebrew University of Jerusalem said on Wednesday. In this way, the researchers restored modern wheat to essential traits that were lost in the domestication process thousands of years ago, thus making it more resistant to climate change and extreme dry conditions. And, it's whatever. It's just some hybrid wheat. But again, there's just, there's a lot of eschatological undertones with that. You have the wheat and the tares passage, the parable of the weeds from Matthew 13. And, I just thought it was weird that Israeli researchers really doing all kinds of
they got a lot going on over there.
Yeah, a lot of genetic mingling. I
think it's interesting how they're basically rewilding the wheat.
Yeah.
They're putting back in the ancient wild DNA of wheat to make it more resistant or resilient.
Which is interesting when you read the parable of the weeds. It says, but while everyone was asleep, his enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat and slipped away. And
dun, dun, dun.
When the wheat sprouted and bore grain, then the weeds also appeared. So there you go. I just thought it was very interesting. What's going on over there in Israel, man? It is just
lots of science, man.
Lots of science. All right, got a quick handful of 33 updates.
33 is the number of completion of the Great War.
33 being the Illuminati dog whistle. Of course, there's many different reasons for the number 33 being pushed out there. This first one from apnews.com. Strong quake shakes Japan. Minor injuries, no major damage. So that's good, considering about, I think it was 10 years ago, 2011, that Japan had the big tsunami that took out the Fukushima. I think that was 2011, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm.
10 years. Wow, that's quick. But it says here, a strong earthquake struck Saturday off northern Japan, shaking buildings even in Tokyo and triggering a tsunami advisory for a part of the northern coast. No major damage was reported, but several people had minor injuries. The U.S. Geological Survey put the strength of the quake magnitude 7.0 and depth at 54 kilometers, which is 33.5 miles. So there you go. That's it. That's the 33 update for that earthquake. It's interesting to bring in different news stories on the 33 update wagon, just to kind of
the magic number, man.
The magic number. It's always there in certain kinds of HARP technologies, maybe. Also, this just a couple of them that are quick here. WWLP, I think. Yeah, WWLP.com. Massachusetts COVID-19 dashboard. 33 new deaths.
Ah, okay.
But they're not alone because in the UK, Reuters.com, UK reports 33 new deaths. Lowest daily number since October, though. Hooray.
So consistent.
I know.
Such a COVID really is consistent. You can say a lot of things about it, but, not a whole lot of surprises.
No. So there you go. Those are the 33 updates for today. And let's get into some Waxing.
Yeah, let's do it.
A pandemic special.
Okie dokie. So let's check in across the pond, Gons. This is coming from BBC.com. The headline, COVID arrests during anti-lockdown protests in London.
Uh-oh.
It's been popping off over there. And not to be outdone, crowds marched from Hyde Park to Westminster with at least 33 arrests by police, mostly for COVID breaches. What?
I think I just closed. Hold on.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, sorry. The browser went bye-bye. Hold on.
Shall I continue?
Yeah, keep reading.
You're doing your thing. Well, again, and I love it how it's at least 33 arrests. They could have said 34 if it was 34, but no, at least 33. Scotland Yard said the number of people attending Saturday's demonstrations exceeded expectations. The Home Office said it was still illegal for people to attend protests under the current coronavirus rules. Deputy Assistant Commissioner Lawrence Taylor told the BBC more people than previously expected were at Saturday's protest, but the Met has not given a formal estimate of the number in attendance. I believe the Met is the Metropolitan Police Department. BBC correspondent Mariana Spring, reporting from the anti-lockdown protests, said the atmosphere was animated, and a number of people appeared to be angry about restrictions on peaceful protest. Later in Hyde Park, police officers were forced to run back to their vans as protesters threw bottles and cans at them. PA media reported that some members of the public then left the park with small children carried by their parents. Okay, weird detail, but sure. The anti-lockdown protests came after a vigil following the death of Sarah Everard in South London last week resulted in arrests as police enforced COVID and public order laws. I can't remember if we reported on this, but did you see this? The vigil that was being held?
No.
Yeah, so there was a vigil for this Sarah person. And it was just kind of your normal vigil. There's candles and people are kind of being very somber. And the cops showed up and started rousting people, beating people.
Really?
For just this very, at least from what I saw, I don't have all the details, but from what I saw, it was just like a peaceful vigil like you'd see for any, sort of public mourning event. But yeah, cops weren't having it. Earlier, more than 60 MPs and peers wrote to the Home Secretary calling for laws to be changed to allow peaceful protests during lockdown. Liberal Democrat leader Sir Ed Davey blamed the scenes at the Clapham event on a lack of clarity, putting police, quote, in an impossible position, adding that the right to protest was a basic freedom. At the scene, thousands of tightly packed lockdown. Oh, I think is this a new article? No, okay. Thousands of tightly packed anti-lockdown protesters marched up Whitehall with some chanting freedom to the beat of a drum. One man carried a placard bearing the words, "No more NHS and Gov lies." I have seen very few demonstrators wearing masks, and there's no attempt at social distancing. So far, the police, who are here in large numbers, have been taking a hands-off approach, though I have seen at least one arrest on Whitehall. Among the crowd, there are undoubtedly some conspiracy theorists.
Oh, no.
Undoubtedly.
This is a disaster. Arrest them all.
You know what I do love about the reporting on this UK story versus if it was America? In the US, it would be 50,000 conspiracy theorists showed up. Where over here it's just, there were some there, I'm sure. Undoubtedly, there were some conspiracy theorists, with some accusing the mainstream media of pushing fake news. But that is by no means everyone here. One woman who did not want to be named told me she knew COVID was bad. Quote, I had it myself last March, she said, but this lockdown is too much. The letter to Home Secretary Priti Patel, organized by campaign groups Liberty and Big Brother Watch, urged her to issue guidance to police forces on facilitating protests. The initial organizers of the Sarah Everard Vigil effectively lost a high court battle to hold it lawfully the day before, resulting in its cancellation. But hundreds attended Clapham Common to gather around tributes left on a bandstand. The Met Police said the gathering became unlawful after people began delivering speeches to the crowd. Yeah, because, you can have people around, but as soon as some rabble-rouser gets up and starts giving a speech, that's when COVID strikes. The event also increased interest in plans to give officers more precise powers to restrict demonstrations in a new sweeping police crime sentencing and court bill debated by MPs. Then there's a couple bullet points here to links to other things, but they include why police should get the power to limit noisy protests.
Oh gosh, come
wrong
on.
at the
These
Don't be
lawmakers.
noisy. Yeah. Anyways, finish it off here. Sir Patrick Vallance, the UK's chief scientific office advisor, told MPs earlier this month that protests elsewhere had not resulted in a spike in infections and that outdoor gatherings were safer than indoors, though not risk-free. He said, quote, it is the case that it is difficult to see how things like large beach gatherings and so on can cause a spike. The same was the case in a protest march in New York. They did not really see any spikes after that, which we talked about quite a bit last year during the Black Lives Matter protests, where, you couldn't have a Bible study of 10 people at your house, but you could gather with 100,000 protesters and scream going down the street. Quote, it is lower risk, but the other thing that can happen with outdoor events and so on is that when indoor things are also open, you start to get people congregating indoors around that. That can increase risk, but outdoors itself is lower risk. I love this. I love this science. The problem with having outdoor things is that sometimes people go indoors and then, okay.
And then COVID, of course.
And then COVID. So yeah, there you go. The UK pushing back pretty hard. They didn't give any numbers on this, but I was seeing numbers upwards of 50,000 people coming out.
Yeah, there were some reports that I saw on Twitter that were like hundreds of people gather, and then they show the footage. It's like, that's more than hundreds. That's thousands.
Yeah, right.
They're trying to downplay it, to make it seem like, it's just these fringe few that decide to walk around and protest.
It's all about the numbers, Guns. You can say hundreds of protesters. That could be, 4,500. That could be 9,900.
500.
Yeah, it's
which
all
is 50,000.
about how to lie with statistics. And then, we had some video over on YouTube of the march through the park there.
Or Twitter, but yeah.
Lots of people, no masks.
Lots of people, no masks. And do you see the mist of Rona falling on these people?
Yes, the mist, the fog, the Rona fog.
The Rona fog. Watch out.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, the absurdity has gotten to new heights. And on that account here, this next story from cnet.com, California theme park group wants you to stop screaming on roller coasters.
Hey, you know what? California theme park groups want me to do a lot of things. And I have yet to comply.
I have a clip from their meeting here.
I'll keep you warm and safe in my people's zoo.
And they say here, this may be one of the biggest challenges of the coronavirus outbreak. Much more difficult for most people than strapping on a face mask.
Biggest challenges.
More than strapping masks on people's faces.
More than shutting down the entire economy, more than setting up field hospitals and, making sure grandma doesn't show up at Christmas. The worst part about it is the roller coasters.
The California Theme Park Trade Group is joining those in Japan and recommending ways to limit screaming on roller coasters and other thrill rides, since screams produce saliva droplets that can spread COVID-19.
Recommending ways to limit screaming. Besides asking people not to scream, what possible way could you have to limit people screaming?
I don't know, but
you could pump them full of anti-anxiety meds, give them beta blockers before they go on the
just
roller
turn them into
coaster.
little zombies while they're riding. The California Attractions and Park Association recently published a list of best practices for reopening parks. The document is no doubt looking ahead to April 30th, when Disneyland and California Adventure are set to reopen after having been closed since March 2020. The document doesn't flat out say don't scream. Instead, it notes that parks have the, quote, ability to limit activities that are known to cause increased spread. Examples: singing, shouting, heavy breathing. It goes on to say that the use of face masks and the fact that riders usually all face in the same direction would help minimize droplet spread. It notes that, quote, modifications to seat loading patterns will be required on amusement park rides to mitigate the effects of shouting, end quote. This is ridiculous. So, what if I should go to Disneyland and make a big fuss, and record it? Like, I'm getting in a seat, like, I don't want the Rona. That man in front, he's going to scream on this ride, and I'm going to catch the Rona. And then it'll be on your tab, Disney.
I think a good strategy would just be to have shushers along the roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody starts screaming, you have attendants posted every, couple yards that just go, shh. It's
no
like a big
shushing.
library.
No shushing. It could spread COVID.
Yeah, shushing does seem like it would spread COVID.
It would be a robot shushing you instead of a...
Oh, yeah.
But also, what's more dangerous? What do you think is more likely on a roller coaster? Getting coronavirus or getting hit by birds? Remember Fabio? The big Fabio clip where he's on a roller coaster and then he comes back, he's all
that
bloody.
Clip lives rent free in my head all year long. Fabio getting hit in the face by a pigeon while he's on a roller coaster. Everybody can take a second, pause the show, go watch the Fabio.
Go look at it. You don't actually see the bird hitting his face, but it's more of a cut scene where he's all happy. He's going up the roller coaster.
I'm pretty sure footage exists.
We couldn't find it the last time we tried.
Okay. Well,
anyway, so there you go.
Yeah,
don't scream,
this is
folks.
interesting. Well, it's interesting because screaming on a roller coaster, that's not just necessarily a voluntary thing. That's that's a physiological response. And it's, some have theorized, scientists will say that, screaming is a physiological response because it's your body trying to take deeper breaths, to keep the oxygen flowing while you have heightened adrenaline and stuff. Mm-hmm. It's like a survival mechanism.
Yeah.
I have a feeling if you stop people from screaming on roller coasters, the roller coaster is going to get back to the station with a bunch of passed out people.
That'll be the next pandemic is just people passing out
roller coasters. Yeah.
Well, anyway, that's just a ridiculous thing here. Not to be outdone, we have another story. You want to take this one?
Yeah, I do. dailymail.co.uk. Again, kind of related to the embryo story we had, but says here, injecting men with the female hormone progesterone would reduce the severity of their COVID-19. Could reduce the severity of their COVID-19, study claims. Who is part of this study?
A bunch of Israelis. Sorry, I'm gonna get in trouble. We're gonna get in trouble. Me for saying that. I'm gonna get canceled.
Injection with the female sex hormone progesterone would improve outcomes for men hospitalized with severe COVID-19 infections, a study has concluded. The finding by researchers from California follows multiple reports that men are at a higher risk of severe illness and death from coronavirus than women. Progesterone has certain anti-inflammatory properties and thus, the team said, may be able to dampen the often fatal immune responses called cytokine storm. The research was undertaken by pulmonologist Sarah Gandharhari of the Cedars-Sinai Hospital in Los Angeles and her colleagues, of course, is California. Quote, as an ICU doctor, I was struck by the gender disparity among COVID-19 patients who were very sick, remained in the hospital, and needed ventilators, she said. Progesterone is produced in both men and women's bodies, although the latter produced considerably more of the hormone during their reproductive years. Experts have also noted that premenopausal women tend to experience less severe cases of COVID-19 than their postmenopausal counterparts. Premenopausal women tend to have higher progesterone levels, while such tends to decrease at lower levels of postmenopause. In their clinical trial, which was undertaken from April through August last year, the researchers recruited 40 male patients who had been hospitalized with moderate to severe COVID-19 and randomly divided them into two groups. One group acted as a control sample for comparison and received only the standard medical care given at that time for the disease. I like how they have to reference at that time, the standard medical care at that time. The experimental group, meanwhile, also received 100 milligram injections of progesterone twice daily for 5 days during the time they were hospitalized. All the patients were assessed by the team daily for either 15 days or until they were discharged from the hospital. On the 7th day, each patient was ranked on a standard 7-point scale clinical status, which ranged from 7, meaning not hospitalized or no limitations on activities, through 1, which is death. The researchers found that compared to the control group, patients who received the progesterone treatment scored a median of 1.5 points higher on the scale. The experimental group also had fewer days of hospitalization overall and a lower need for supplemental oxygen and mechanical ventilation. Although the team said the differences between the groups in these areas was not statistically significant.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah. No serious adverse effects were observed as a result to the progesterone injections. 2 patients did die during the 15-day study period, 1 from each of the 2 groups, but such were unrelated to the experimental treatments, the team said. Quote, while our findings are encouraging for the potential of using progesterone to treat men with COVID-19, our study had significant limitations, cautioned Dr. Gandharhari. Firstly, she explained, the sample size was relatively small and was primarily made up of white, Hispanic, and obese individuals with a moderate burden of other conditions, which serve to increase the risk of worse outcomes. Furthermore, while the trial was randomized and featured a control group, it was also unblinded, meaning that the research team, physicians, and patients all knew who had received the experimental treatment. Quote, further research is necessary in larger, more heterogeneous populations, including postmenopausal women, and at other treatment centers, Dr. Gandharhari added. This, she continued, will allow the team to establish the degree of clinical efficacy and to assess any other potential safety concerns of the treatment approach. And then they've got a link to the whole paper there. But yeah, very interesting. I mean, especially just considering all the conversation going on with, the trans community and the drastic measures to try to find treatment for COVID-19. Injecting men with female hormones. Don't worry, guys. This is the way to do it.
Well,